Okay, we are now recording. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all here for our second session this term. I am super excited to share the stage here with one of the graduates of Embry-Riddle's aeronautics program, actually air traffic management, Mr. Justin Beaupre. He also achieved a minor in meteorology, holds his private pilot certificate and an instrument rating. After he graduated Embry-Riddle in 2015, he moved to Oklahoma so that he could pursue a career as a radar analyst to perform case studies and create mitigation plans that are based on large renewable energy and construction projects impacting DOD and FAA radars. As a hobby, Justin flew various types of UAS, including multirotor, fixed wing, vertical takeoff and landing, and conventional rotary wing helicopters. And he did that all for fun, but eventually he entered the drone racing industry, which allowed him to push the limits with technology and network with designers, engineers, and key industry leaders. I do want to note he was 6th in the world at one time for drone racing. Throughout this process, Justin was approached to fly UAS targets for a DOD program as a red team pilot. Flying as a red team asset eventually led him to a complete career shift where he moved to Huntsville, Alabama, where he now resides. He now works as a contract test engineer for the Army's Integrated Fires and Rapid Capabilities Office, developing and executing large counter UAS test events. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Justin.
Thank you, sir. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone else kind of coming along and actually getting to see the journey that I took for all this. I've known Brent for some time now, so it's definitely an honor to be a part of your master class here. And I hope that, someone at least takes away something from this. I feel like the bio said everything, so I guess that's class dismissed. No. Yeah, I guess I can just jump right into it if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
I think you got to hand me the reins again here.
Okay, let me figure this out. Here we go. We should both be co-hosts.
All right. And hopefully you're able to see the screen.
Got it.
Awesome. So I'll give you kind of a quick intro. My name is Justin Beaupre, and I work for a company called Axient, if you can't tell by the giant branding for all the PowerPoint slides. I am a system engineer and technical assistant, also known as a CETA contractor at IFRCO, or the Integrated Fires Rapid Capabilities Office, under PEO Missiles and Space for the Army. Kind of like I was saying before, my goal is, I understand that everyone may be in different stages of their career, or maybe even just starting. I'm hoping that by showing you my path that I took, it might allow for some clarity of your own, and maybe show you what your next move is, whether it may be in a lateral move, an educational field change, promotion, career change, really, whatever it is that you plan on doing. Nonetheless, we'll just kind of jump right into it. So who am I? I'm not sure what, there we go. So I am an Embry-Riddle graduate, and I did receive my private pilot's license as well. I consider myself a professional tinkerer. I do a lot. I was just talking to Brent earlier. I'm in my office here, and I do a lot of just for fun CAD work, have a CNC machine, 3D printers, programming, electrical projects, woodworking. But basically, if it's something new or different for me, I love trying out new things and doing what I can just to kind of explore the technology field. Additionally, I did do some drone racing. I'll dive into that a little bit later. I'm also a recreational RC pilot, so fixed wing, multi-rotor, did a little bit of heli as well. That was just something that I enjoyed to do. And I do have over 2,000 unlogged flight hours. Unfortunately, it goes way back, and everything can't be logged nowadays. It seems that everyone wants it logged. So if I opened up my logbook, it'd probably only be, a few hundred hours, 500 hours, something like that instead. And right now, I'm a counter UAS test engineer for Axient, working for our customer, which is the government, IFRCO. In my current position, I plan to execute a lot of CUAS test events from the ground up. Doesn't matter, what we have available. We just kind of generate it from the ground up and utilize what we can and any assets we may have, as well as just provide a lot of UAS and counter UAS SME support, and a lot of research and development of different unmanned systems, whether it be blue forces, red forces. I also create and conduct and analyze a lot to do with UAS engineering and the systems that we use. And that also includes, like OPFOR missions, so opposing forces, red team, and the profiles based on like the potential system performance specifications. If I'll dive into that a little further later on to make a little more sense of that. As well as kind of coordinate between my customer, the government, and the local integrated test teams that we have here. And I guess the primary reason that I'm here sharing my story with you is because kind of the steps that I took to get to where I am now. It's not anything special. It's something that anyone could actually find themselves in, and something that you may actually be doing now and you just don't realize it. So, how I got here for me was special. And throughout this journey, you'll notice that some things are highlighted red, and that may be, a trigger for you to possibly think about what components in your life or things that you have done that may be important for your next step, or how to integrate with what you are currently doing or you want to do. And I'll highlight those things myself and what I did and how I thought it was important to me. So kicking it right off, on the right-hand side here, you'll probably notice there is a little timeline, like that little graduation hat that'll grow as we move through this. So it'll give you a better idea where I am with the timeline. So like I said before, I'm an Embry-Riddle graduate. I do have my pilot certificate and my instrument rating. I did want to do the aeronautical sciences track and decided, you know what, my wallet's empty. I'm probably going to move along with my to something else instead of doing my commercial. And I decided to pursue with the air traffic management side of the house. While I was at Embry-Riddle, though, I took a lot of UAS courses still, and actually joined the UAS Technology Club, which it's this shirt right here. Still got to represent that. And I did a lot of recreational flying, as well as racing, excuse me. And that kind of, opened me up to a couple of things here. I flew actually on Embry-Riddle and at Daytona Beach, and I'm not sure if everyone's super familiar with that location, but it is right next to the airport. You can see here in the photo. And I actually flew in a soccer field in one of those photos. And that was due to an agreement with Daytona Tower. And that was kind of my first exposure to manned aircraft and UAS deconfliction. And that's something that to this day, I actually still deal with, whether it's good or bad. So upon graduating, I did receive my bachelor's degree in air traffic management and applied meteorology. And I do use a lot of my weather skills today in some various cases. And I did also, while I was at Embry-Riddle and even tracking back to like high school, I worked in the video industry, and I did a lot of photo and video editing with various clients, and that kind of kicked everything off, developing a relationship with clients and learning those skills to communicate directly with clients and understanding, hey, what are your needs? How can I help? And that's something that I probably should have put in there and highlighted red, because it's helped me tremendously to this day. Once I was about to graduate, I had someone pull me aside and was like, hey, I got someone I want you to meet. He works in Oklahoma. He's a radar analyst. And one thing led to another. I ended up moving to Oklahoma, the tornado capital of the world. Not sure why I thought that was a good idea, but I went for it. And as a radar analyst, basically I was there providing a more technical analysis to industry partners, wind industry, commercial, real estate, transmission line, solar. That really the sky was the limit. To give you an example, before raising a commercial building, sometimes they would talk to the FAA, if they're near an approach or radar, and they would come to us and we'd conduct studies to find mitigations. In some cases, the FAA wasn't even so lucky. They would build a building because it was lower than the height requirements of having to report it, and the FAA would see effects. So sometimes politics get involved. We get called in and we would just start saying, hey, what are these effects? We got false track issues, clutter issues, star air traffic management issues. So we would create tools to actually solve those problems, which, was a huge piece that I actually still use to this day, is developing different tools. So we use our analysis tools and radar line of sight tools to actually find out, hey, what do we need to do to help mitigate some of this? Along with that, it wasn't just radar line of sight. We dealt with a lot of ADF, SB, and MLAT, multilateration stuff within the FAA as well. And overall, just looking at impact assessments. And doing all this, obviously, we needed some sort of solution for management. And I used a lot of GIS software as well as MATLAB in order to actually execute all of this. And if GIS software wasn't a savior, I use that every single day, whether or not I need it, because I could say that even if it wasn't necessarily required, I would still utilize it to have a better understanding. And in some cases, it possibly sheds light on issues and just has a better overall visualization. And Brent, do you want me to stop for questions throughout, or you just want me to wait till after?
No, we'll do questions at the end.
Okay, so I'll keep pushing forward then. So becoming a radar analyst was a big part of my career shift, understanding the professional side of the house and how things worked. But while I was there, I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, and I was trying to find, a way out, or whether it was like mentally just trying to find an avenue to relax. And that led one thing to another. I started flying at the local RC field and really dove into what is known as drone racing nowadays. And it was a whirlwind. So I have a short video here I'll play. It's like 30 seconds long, just to give you a general idea of the type of flying that I did and some of the stuff I got to do in general. So I'll go ahead and play that and let me know if there's any issues. And hopefully you guys can still hear me. There we go. But that was an experience for me. Nothing like feeling like you're in an F-16 and then crashing and realizing that you're still alive. It's an out-of-body experience. And it's something that I will definitely never forget because it allowed me to do so much more than I would have ever expected. So while, in this racing career, I was also a radar analyst. So I was juggling a lot. I was traveling a lot. I flew in 50 plus large race events. And when I say, certified races, some people may or may not have heard of like multi-GP, the Drone Racing League, Drone Sports Association, etc. This was kind of like the big start of the racing industry. And I was literally riding this wave in the front of it and just enjoying the ride, watching technology just really advance in this field. I was able to get some racing sponsors, and that helped me financially, obviously, to be able to travel and get everything I needed. Brent pointed out earlier, I have a wall. It's basically a graveyard of racing drones, a lot of carbon fiber, a lot of money that I've smashed up, but it's a reminder to me that, hey, this is what you've done, this is what you've achieved, what you had to do to get there, blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why I kind of keep that back there. But needless to say, it allowed for personal growth for me. So, because I was racing full time or working full time in racing as well, as a way to just relieve stress and focus on my personal and mental growth. So, for example, since I traveled a lot, I was like, hey, I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to take PTO out of my schedule. I only had, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks of PTO. And I would manage that really closely to be like, hey, I'm going to New York. Hey, I'm going to, Virginia. Hey, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go race. See you later. Only because, I wasn't super happy with my current job. And, because of those racing sponsors, I conducted all sorts of R&D and prototyping with, different types of quad designs, flight controller softwares, a lot of different tuning methods, some really wild and crazy stuff that sometimes worked really well and sometimes just flopped miserably. As well as met a lot of key industry leaders, whether, FAA director or a lot of people who work in the technology field, DJI. I'm sure you guys have heard of them before. Altel, just various drone vendors, and was able to kind of see the progression that they were trying to make. And like Brent mentioned earlier, I did get 6 at Drone Nationals, and that turned into what was basically a world event. And that was a time I will never forget, just having the best of the best from all around the world and the country in one spot, just duking it out to seeing who was the best. And the stress was high, but it was something that, like I was saying, I would never forget. But, while this was all happening as well, I was at the RC field enjoying my personal time practicing and flying, and actually had someone approach me, and I won't put any names out just because of the way the industry works. And they were basically saying, hey, we'd love for you to come maybe fly for us in some military tests. And I was like, that sounds awesome. I'm in. So on top of, now radar analyst, drone racing, now I'm going to fly as a red team pilot. It was just something else that I was just trying to find myself. And I will say that this was the true entrance to my current career. Doing this as a part-time opportunity was something that enhanced my ability today. So while all that was going on, I flew in countless UAS military exercises and for counter UAS as a UAS pilot and consultant. I was performing all sorts of flight operations for, military clients as well as commercial clients. In some cases, we, pipeline inspection and whatnot, just because that's what the company did, as well as build a lot of large and small traditional fixed wing and multi-rotor UAS groups 1 through 3, and performed a lot of rapid prototyping within that, whether it was designing better autopilot hardware within the interior of the drones or the UAVs to make sure they weren't going to go anywhere, better fuel tank systems, just you name it. It was just a way for us to supply a better product to the government and show that. Also, throughout that, I was really had the doors open for me on flying UAS, not only within line of sight, but also beyond visual line of sight. When you work with the military, the rules are different than the FAA. Obviously, with the FAA, you need a lot of different waivers, and you have to work with them directly in order to get to be able to do beyond visual line of sight. But with the military, depending on what you're doing and where you're at, restricted airspace, things kind of changed a little bit. So we would work directly with the military, the FAA on, CUAS, what waivers we needed. And it was a way for me to kind of dip my toes in that water and realize this is what it took to actually be able to execute that. In addition to that, obviously create a lot of flight profiles and analysis in order to find out, the performance figures of both the systems and the actual UAVs itself. If you need me to fly for example, I'm not going to be able to fly it from 50 miles away. Sorry, you're going to have to find a different target for that, or we have to come up with a solution. And that's just kind of give you an example of, some of the things that would be battled when coming up with different solutions. So while I was going through all this, flying, red team pilot, racing, radar analyst, it finally got to a point where I realized that I wanted to do this full time. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be part of the DOD industry. It's definitely, I felt like it was my calling. All my experience before led up to being able to do this. Like I've said, everything highlighted and read, it felt like everything I've learned would help me. So I started looking around and I found a company called QuantiTech, which is now known as Axient. And I just made the leap and I picked up everything. I said, appreciate everything you guys have done. If you need anything in the future, let me know. Try not to burn any bridges. But I'm moving to Huntsville, and that's where I am today. I'm in Huntsville. And I started working as a full-time UAV pilot and a seated contractor as an analyst. And I would build, fly, repair a lot of Group 1 and Group 2, primarily UASs, and sometimes Group 3. I would support a lot more with actual event and test planning and the test conduct for these events. And it was kind of another peek into the window of where I would end up today, as well as figure out better data retrievals systems for UAVs, whether they were intact or no longer intact, and flew in numerous UAS exercises, as well as performed a lot of research and development for unmanned systems. Like I was saying previously, I felt like every single step that I took always had that involved, and to this day, it's still the case. And while this was a big chunk, I did that for about a year and a half or a year. I was actually out at one of our tests and someone approached me while I was at one of our launch points. It was like, hey, we have a test position open. We think you're the guy for the job. And I was essentially doing on-site job interviews for the position. But that led me to what I do today. And that is who I work for, which is the Integrated Fires and Rapid Capabilities Office. And it's a mouthful. That falls under PEO's Missiles and Space, which is the Army. And I'll kind of read this verbatim. The PEO and IFRCO's goal is to lead, plan, coordinate, and synchronize a systems concept to ensure integration and interoperability to support a full spectrum multi-domain operations force. Mouthful, but what does that mean? When you think of that, the first thing that pops up to most people is multi-domain, land, air, and sea. Got it. You're right, but it doesn't actually end there. In our case, it means also cyber, kinetic and electronic warfare. It has a lot of different meanings. So, for example, if we also want to take whatever it may be, take things anywhere, anytime, and have full integration and communication. So if I have a gun, let's say 100 feet or 100 miles away from a radar or any other subsystem like camera or, you name it, the systems and the team should be able to operate and communicate just as efficiently as if they were standing right next to one another. It should be a seamless operation in any way, shape, or form. And in addition to that, not only cyber, kinetic, or electronic warfare, land, air, or sea, it's also, the function of the teams, the engineering within the teams, logistics, the programs themselves. It really trickles down or trickles up all the way to where things start. So that multi-domain operation standpoint, it really, it really keeps moving up the tree or down the tree and into all different aspects of what you're trying to achieve with it. Additionally, I did want to kind of give some examples of what IFRCO does, as or at least our side of the house, the Rapid Capabilities Office. And we test, develop, and deploy systems. It's kind of like watching children grow up in a weird way. It's like a crawl, walk, run. Someone comes to us with an idea, we find something, and then we take it from that to deployment. And some of these you may or may not have heard of, the land-based phalanx weapon system, the LPWS, used to be known as like CUAS, or still is, from the Navy. Coyote Block 2, MLIDs, which is actually some of those trucks you see in top and bottom. Actually, the Coyote is the thing flying out of the truck on the top. Q50 MMR, FAD-C2, which is like a situational awareness program. All of these systems, whether I was there, some of these I have seen from inception, that we take them from start to end. And then once they grow beyond their development, at least for us and their deployments, we take that off to another organization within the PEO. For example, LPWS, we put that in the PEO, or it's called SHIELD, which is like a FOB defense section or branch. And we say, here you go, this is for you to manage. And they take it and kind of take it from there on out, and continue to help us integrate with multi-domain operations and other systems that we have coming in to keep one coherent, overarching, situational awareness and subset. And, why IFRCO does this? The primary goal is to protect the warfighter and give them the unfair advantage. That's right. If I understand that's a worldwide campus, but our goal is to give our soldiers the best opportunity they have to save their own life and the life of others. So to this day, as of recent, in some cases, over 135 life-saving warnings and well over 50 plus successful direct fire engagements. These systems, we know they work. We get to see how they work and even tweak the knobs even further in order to really push the limits. Now, with all that said, I can't do all that by myself. So I have a very small role in all of this as part of the team. So where I stand in this, which is now at the end of my timeline, you can see on the right, today, I am a seated test engineer for the Rapid Capabilities Office side of the house. So like I said at the beginning, I plan and execute all of these large test events. For example, the way I explain it is I make the puzzle, other people solve it, or a better example may be, there's a chessboard, I set up the chessboard and I watch the other players play it. It's my goal is, to actually try to make the test happen in the most timely manner and get all of our requirements and objectives met every single time we go out and test. And in addition to that, I have to also understand the limitations, whether it's, the systems themselves, the UAVs, sometimes it has to do with like the firing fans, safety considerations, or the environment or that we're in. I mean, it's an endless number of variables in order to achieve what we're trying to do. As well as coordinate, unmanned systems and manned aircraft systems. That interoperability is key for us. In some cases, it has been just physical deconfliction or just grounding the aircraft. There are other things that we do. We have a lot of situational awareness. We have radars and whatnot, but I won't be able to go into all those details right now. I do do a lot of SME support as well for the test team, as well as the counter UAS system engineers. and the teams that actually develop a lot of these systems, as well as generate test plans in accordance with all the government guidelines. As anyone knows, government's always making new regulations. So my job is to write these test plans in accordance with these new regulations, rules, laws, you name it, things that we come up with, and constantly meet those requirements. I do a lot of coordination as well with our government customer, or even the system providers, like the big names I said before, and again, conduct a lot of R&D with various unmanned systems, and I should have probably included actual military systems as well. It's something, it's, you know, the piece that just keeps on giving, and something that I see myself actually using into the future. And all of these bullets in red that I've highlighted have been my pieces to the puzzle to get to where I am today. You know, I could probably take all those, put them in the one spot and say, hey, because of these things that I have, it's allowed me to take the path that I can. And I, you know, maybe the people here today, you guys can say, hey, interesting thought. You know, I've also done some of these different things, not maybe what I've done, but some other different pieces that you have maybe achieved or you've seen throughout your time, and are able to apply that to your next move. You know, whether it's education, you know, job change, finding a new career, or that career that you want to get into, you know, find your piece of the puzzle, and, you know, do what you can to achieve it. I'm always, you know, out and about looking for different opportunities within the hobbyist space. I love what I do now. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I think I've achieved my nirvana for enjoyment, just because of how fast paced everything is. But I know in the hobbyist world, you can't see everything, but 3D printers, CNC machines, and other things I tinker with will probably continue to provide me with skills with what I do today. So if there's anything to take away with that, maybe continue to tinker if you don't tinker now, or if you do tinker, find new things to tinker with, and you know, try out new things and don't be afraid of it. But other than that, I guess that's really about all I have. I'll open up the floor.
Outstanding. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I had to do a midstream technology change. Unfortunately, my computer decided to reboot and go into Windows Update mode. Luckily, I had my iPad here, so hopefully everybody can see me all right, and I'm coming through. Well, Justin, that was outstanding. Do you want to stop sharing, and that way we can kind of get... There we go. Perfect. Oh, you can see my wonderful face. All right. So you mentioned, you know, in your experience, video editing skills. How, you know, if you combine those with the pilotage and the certifications that you have, how important are those skills compared to one another? How critical is pilotage ability to videography?
You know, I will say that it depends on how you're working, right? If I will say to get good video or a good edit, you need to have a good pilot. Those are cohesive in some ways. Obviously, if you're jerking the camera around all over the place, you won't be able to get something of quality. So depending on what that quality is, you know, it is important to meet that client's standards. So I guess the long way around, I think it is fairly important. Those two go pretty well hand in hand if you're in that industry, for sure.
Outstanding. Okay, in regards to unmanned system technologies, what are some of the most recent advances or breakthroughs that you personally find exciting, and why is that?
So I obviously, and I know we talked about it before, I got to be a little careful, and I can't speak necessarily for what the military is doing, unfortunately, but I can say that breakthroughs for me has been actually the commercial industry as a whole, as weird as that may sound, in the military's involvement. There's been a lot of testing recently within public knowledge that the military has actually said, bring me what you got, show me what you have. And it's actually, I've seen the industry open up and people even coming up with new ideas and developments, and kind of reaching out to even the military saying, hey, we got this, hey, we got that. And it's very opposite of what people typically know the military to be, right? Developing something on their own, keeping it secret, and running away with it, and you don't find out about it for 30 years later or whatever, maybe. It's definitely taken a turn there because the commercial industry is coming up with some brilliant ideas, and it's kind of hard to say, you know, that's terrible, when in reality, no, that's a pretty good idea. So the fact that the military has been open and is getting involved with the commercial industry, I think that has been a huge breakthrough, at least in our industry.
What tools or resources do you personally use to stay informed? What are some of the challenges you find with sifting through, the large volume of available data or information?
So that is a hard one.
It can be things like tech blogs. Yeah, I don't want to.
So the military itself obviously has its own tools, but at a personal level, I can't say that I really have a great resource, because most of what I do is typically like project driven. But I would say Google. Stumbling upon all sorts of different things has really opened up my eyes to what's available. I'm in tons of like Facebook groups, SUAS news, or there's all sorts of. I got a full list of like sites that I go to just to see kind of what's latest and greatest. Even Twitter will have some interesting things sometimes just popping up. But for difficulty, I will say the sheer amount of information and material that is out there is the problem. Sometimes just sifting through it is just too difficult to do, and you really have to almost limit yourself to exactly what you're looking for. And then you're just constantly taking baby steps to kind of put that bigger picture together. I definitely always find myself to do that with any type of research.
What guidance do you have for students that are looking to enter the unmanned systems field, especially anything with counter UAS technology?
So I would say, kind of like I was saying before, know what you've done, know what your strengths are, and where you think you can actually succeed in the field. Everything that you think you need to make those wheels turn to get into the counter UAS industry or whatever industry you're trying to get into, you probably have the skill or a skill that can be used in that. So I would say, whatever it is that you have that you think you can bring to the table, go for it. So, for example, video editing and photography in the counter UAS industry, there's a lot of video related stuff that actually happens, and understanding like photography, optics, how lenses work. You could use different type. If you're good at math, you can use different types of math to actually triangulate different camera optics, understand what they're capable of doing. I mean, that's just trying to link one thing to another, but that web is endless. So just think about what you have to bring to the table and how you could apply that. So if you go to an interview, tell them, hey, this is what I got, this is what I can currently do. And they might be like, haven't really thought about that before. And that's actually opened up a lot of doors for people I know, actually, even recently.
Excellent. Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the class. I see we have a question from Steve Wells. If everybody else, if you have a question, please just use the raise hand icon, and I'll try to call you in sequence. So, Steve?
Hey, how are you doing today? Sorry for background noise. I'm actually out of Fort Bliss. So I work with C5 ISR in the GHOST program for khaki, man. So one, it's great to meet you because I just got back from the counter U.S. Academy in Human. The latest iteration of the County is amazing. I know you can't talk about it, but I pretty much 3 parts of questions was so currently I do the red cell. What's the easiest way to move from the red cell flying and moving to actually running the counter UAS systems is the first one. Second one is if you can give any advice on the cyber type certs that would be applicable to more of the cyber realm of counter UAS. And then if you know any companies or anybody that does utilizes and trains with the small tactical drones, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Let's see if I can take that piece by piece. So number one.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I've seen your name before, so it's actually a pleasure to hear your voice. It truly is a small world. Very familiar with C5 or I2. But sorry. So your first question was what again?
Oh, sorry. And I threw it out there because I was a little excited. How to move from currently I'm doing red cell and I'm more interested in counter UAS systems and actually the running of those because it's more applicable and more education and things like that. One of the easiest way to transfer between those type programs.
Gotcha. So understanding, I can't remember if you're a contractor government, but understanding, what you're currently doing. And I don't know what part of C5 specifically that you're typically working with. But if you are primarily red cell, I mean, obviously, the skills that you currently know and how to operate those systems directly apply to the test events themselves. So I would say reach out to, the people running the tests. I know obviously IFRCO is not the only people doing that, but maybe other organizations and see how your current experience would directly help them understand everything better, because as well as I, there's a lot of COTS ETP stuff, AWRs, working directly with SRD. And I apologize for everyone else if I'm throwing a whole bunch of stuff out, but just working with a lot of these different partners itself and the networks that you have will drastically help make your way into, I guess, that field. I could say that helped me quite a bit when I made that leap, even though in my case it was internal. I went from QuantiTech to QuantiTech or Axient to Axient and stayed within the IFRCO or CRAM tree. And the second was the second part of that, the cyber portion.
Yeah, just because that's getting more and more prevalent, even with just security for automated systems and things on the civilian side. I don't know if there's certs out there yet. I know like Security Plus, but ones that are more applicable to the unmanned systems as a whole.
Yeah, so with the cyber aspect, I have just about as a hard time actually saying as well. Brent, you may even be able to chime in on that. I personally can't think of anything at the top of my head, but I will say, at least in this field, like a PMP certification, just project management, that is a huge help as well. I know that doesn't really answer your question, but unfortunately, I don't think I actually have an answer.
No, that was good, and I appreciate it. And the other one is just about small tactical drones, but we can move on because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to say I appreciate it, man. And if it'd be possible, is there a way you can throw like a LinkedIn, if you have that, into the chat box to try and network for later on, if that's possible?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can totally do that. And Brent, you had something you were going to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say what I've been noticing in the cyber side, connected to unmanned systems, is a lot of academic institutes and organizations are putting together their own certificates where they're combining the materials kind of from that perspective. And the reason is it's so new from a professional development experience and perspective. While the technology is not new, while IT connected to UAS and mobile robotics is not new, it's bringing all three of those elements together in a unified curriculum or even program or test, to result in a certification, that's what's new. So expect it in the future. In the meanwhile, I would look at cyber specific certifications, maybe cyber IT programs.
And actually, to add on to that, in some cases, like you said, educational institutes, I could probably say the same for even internally. With different DoD organizations, they're kind of coming up with their own aspects of things like TSMO. I know they have a full list of their own cyber requirements, I think, being that, they have a whole cyber side of the house with TSMO. So that may even be a starting point. But I probably could answer the question really quick about the tactical UAS interceptors. And that would be, kind of dive into that side of the house, system engineering itself. A lot of our teams, there's different aspects, at least for us. We have like our mobile guys, our software guys, unmanned systems or special systems, looking into maybe one of those branches to say, hey, tactical UAS interceptors, this could be the path forward. Get in contact, even if you want to reach out to me, maybe I can get you in contact with our tactical UAS interceptor guy. You probably might know some of the system names.
Yeah, I do. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. And sorry if I took too much of the time. But
Not at all.
Appreciate it.
All right, Zach, if you want to go.
Hey, Justin, I'm Zach Smith. Quick background on me. I am a Riddle grad 08 AeroSci. And then I joined the Army where I was an ISR pilot, did VIP stuff. Currently a 777 captain and for a freight operator. And additionally, I was a leader in my union, which some of the things you talked about were not only what you did, you're a very smart, technical, passionate guy, but it sounds like you were unhappy for a while and now you are happy. I noticed from the picture of yourself where you look about 10 feet tall there with your wife, you have some family time now. So my question to you is, how would you characterize the pay, benefits, and quality of life for those in the UAS industry, both on the government contract and civilian side?
That's a great question. First off, thank you for your service. That's something that doesn't go unrecognized. In addition to that, so like you were saying, quality of life is very, very difficult. So like you said before, I wasn't very happy. I was also trying to find myself. I'm trying to limit myself to what I'm saying. It wasn't, I can't say that was the people I was working with, but I just kind of found a different path that I probably should have. But I will say, balancing work and life in this industry specifically is not easy. The first year that I joined, I traveled, so I do IHG hotels, if that gives you an idea where I'm going with this. I traveled well over 180 days. And that was before I met my now fiance, actually. That photo's where we got engaged, where I proposed to her. And she is about 5'0". So, so yeah, the travel aspect has been very difficult. And yeah, Spire Elite for sure. And basically traveling has hindered it in some bit, but having found someone that understood what I was doing has helped me tremendously. So unfortunately, I will say, this industry, it is, it's hard. Something I've always heard is, do you work to live or live to work? Right. And I'm somewhere in the middle there. I've decided that I would rather live to work rather than, I would rather work to live rather than live to work. Just because, our families are more important than what we do for a living. That's just me personally. That's the way I think about it. So the DOD industry, you'll find that very difficult. It's hard for me to speak for the commercial industry, however. I know that our partners within the commercial industry, they deal with a lot of the same stuff I do. They might travel a little less, but they travel quite a bit and they have to find that work-life balance. So I would say, you know, I don't know if you were looking for advice necessarily, but say
the level of travel you engaged in surprised me because I thought there was an increase in remote pilot capabilities. Is there anything that you can do with the remote work industry that would reduce the physical time you'd be away?
So for my current role, unfortunately not, just because it's a actual test execution role. So I have to physically typically be on site to run a test. Our motto, because it happens a lot, is say you can't run a test from Huntsville. A lot of backseat drivers, you know. So if you're out there in the field, you have a better idea of what's going on and what's actually happening. Making real-time calls is, for at least engineering purposes, is very difficult. And it's almost counterintuitive because we're working for multi-domain operations. Shouldn't we be able to run a test from Huntsville? We're pushing in that direction. We're actually trying to find ways to do that. But to be able to actually execute a lot of these types of things, there's no better way than to do it in person and to be boots on the ground. As much as I hate it, you know, I would say most of what we do can be remote, but sometimes someone's got to turn that power on and off, and someone's got to be there to do it. So
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Certain things just can't be changed, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, when I was in doing my ISR work, we'd routinely be in the stack with unmanned assets. So I know there's advantages and disadvantages to being present.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, with unmanned assets, there is obviously a lot of remote pilot capabilities, and I deal with a lot of Group 1, 2, and 3. So I'll let your imagination flow with that. So capabilities are there, but depending on what you're doing, the type of testing you're doing, you know, these things may not come back intact in some cases, or, you know, there's a lot of variables that sometimes can or cannot be controlled. And safety typically is the driving role of that.
Thanks, Justin.
No problem. Thank you.
And next up is Christian Kang.
Hey, Justin, just to follow up to that, I understand the a lot of travel, and you know, you have to be on site to get a lot of these projects done. But that being said, from your bio and your history, your quality of life has got to be great. I mean, you obviously are loving what you're doing. It sounds like it kind of ticks every passion that you have from your aviation background, your technical curiosity, all those things that you just put together. Would you probably then agree that if it's all worth it at the end of the day? Do you even consider this work at all?
I will say there are days I consider it work, and there are days I don't consider it work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it definitely still has its ups and downs. If I had to actually choose one to run with it, I would still consider it work. Just because I value what will be eventually, you know, I don't have kids yet. I have a fiance. We're going to get married next year. And, you know, that is going to be my number one priority. However, you know, if this was all I did, I would probably not consider it work. It is primarily because I find it a challenge, and I always love a challenge. And there is always something new. To give you a little peek, a lot of programs, they're program of record. So if they have a system that they're developing, you are looking at a minimum, no joke, like a minimum of at least 6 years, in some case 30 years, to actually get it from crawl, walk, run. With what we do, we're talking from idea to deployment, in some cases a little over a year. Like we have all wheels turning, everyone working, all the companies. It's a whole nother level, and it's not boring.
That's kind of a lead onto another second question, if you will. But your communication skills sound like they have to be really good. There sounds like there's a lot of moving parts. a lot of subject matter experts in different areas. Do you find yourself drawing upon your college days and your paper writing and conveying of information?
I can tell you that to this day, I'm still told that I actually had this conversation with Brent. My writing style is very conversational. Unfortunately, I would have to agree that, I have taken away some things from my technical writing class, but I can tell you most of what I've learned, I've kind of thrown out the window and have followed suit with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
The joke is the Army writes at a 7th grade level, and it's kind of a joke and kind of not really, because everyone who reads it has to be able to understand it. Doesn't matter who it is. So I will say, you do have to have the capability to be able to communicate, whether it is written or verbally. I'm actually not, I wouldn't think I'm the best communicator in some cases. I stumble over my words, my writing. Sometimes I forgot to even do a spell check, and this stuff's going up to, Secretary of Defense sometimes. I'm like, all right, I need to probably have someone look at my work every time. So it's something that I struggle with today, but yeah, communication is key, but it's something that you can struggle with and still reach, your goal.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to
Congratulations.
chime in on that just a little bit, and this is why you guys hear me constantly reiterate on feedback. Tone is so important. Formal tone, technical nature of your writing is critical at our level and at the graduate level, because you have to be able to communicate your information in a consistent and uniform format. Really, and it's a challenge because we innately want to type and put our thoughts together as we would speak. It's a skill that takes a lifetime sometimes to master, but it really does pay dividends. And you'll hear me push it so hard because that's the route I came up through when I worked in DOD. I initially started as a tech writer editor, which the skills, the knowledge, and experience I gained from that served me well in my graduate and on to my postgraduate educational journey. So, all right, Christian, did you have any more follow-up?
Oh no, that's it. Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Camp, you have a question?
Yes, hi, how's it going? My name is Chris. I work for a company called Joby Aviation. It's a eVTOL taxi startup in Silicon Valley, and we get so busy. We're still in the R&D and certification process that we still kind of lose sight as to what's going to look like with thousands of these aircraft over major cities, ferrying people over major U.S. cities. And it's not just, aerial taxi services. There's also personal eVTOL aircraft that are coming out like Whisk and Archer. And it's just crazy to think that there's going to be, people are going to have aircraft that can literally take off from anywhere and land anywhere, in the country within like a 300 mile radius. And I was just wondering, how do you see that, affecting ATC? And just how we how Americans travel in general.
That's a great question. To add to that, all autonomously in some cases, like a lot of these companies and startups, they're like, hey, push a button, I'm going to get you all the way there, point A to point B. And I could say that it's going to be a challenge. Something that the FAA has been working on for a long time is like their next gen system and how they're trying to progress their technology. And I think a big key of that is following suit. So ADS-B requirements, understanding what you need on board. A lot of people think that, these UAVs are going to have people in them and fly from point A to point B. Well, it's not. This is where it gets interesting because it's not a UAV anymore. It's a manned aircraft. So according to the FAA, you still need to have a license. You need to meet certain requirements. That means that, hey, you have to understand how air traffic works, the radio communication skills, and a lot of those other things. Now, this is down the road, obviously, right? The entry to barrier is going to be changed. I think a lot of these will find better ways for people to communicate, even non-verbally. You know, that happens today. I believe I'm sorry, sir, was it Christian that's a 777 pilot? I believe he said, you know, that, hey, since he flies all the time, he understands that there's actually ways to non-verbally communicate the ATC. Well, a lot of that's going to be enhanced and become, you know, better over time. And I really do think that, you know, everyday people will be able to actually enter the air traffic, you know, space, the national airspace system, and get from point A to point B. But it's going to be the way the FAA wants to do it. So, I guess the long-winded answer, or the short version of what I was trying to say, is it's going to be a little chaotic at first, but the fact of the matter is the FAA is going to drive the requirements, and those requirements will still need to be met, whether or not you like.
Do you see the FAA just taking the human out of it and just kind of like having like Tesla, like autopilot, like you punch in some coordinates or a direction or you know, an address, and the aircraft will just fly itself to the point and tying itself with, you know, air traffic control, doing it all by itself autonomously?
I definitely think that we'll reach that point. I don't know. I think that I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I think that we may possibly see some indications of that in my lifetime. I think that capability will be around. This technology and industry is growing at such a rapid rate. I mean, if you look at the numbers, billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
It's not going to stop. People are going to find ways to do things, especially with large commercial entities. You know, they always find a way to get what they want to do, and better for the worse, right? So yeah, I definitely do see that happening.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Excellent. Stephen, you have a question.
Hey, Justin, how are you?
Awesome. How about yourself?
Great, thanks. Look, I got an opportunity to look at the IFRICO website here on the other screen and looked at some of the other acronyms down here from SHIELD, STAR, and the rest of the Marvel comics down at the bottom. It says that literally, as I look at this, you all have the smallest little writing piece on what you do, but one of the other pieces in here says that everything gets funneled through IFRICO. All of the new technologies or information all come through your department. Is that really kind of a true statement? And then I've got a follow on to that.
So I can say that, we work for the Army. So everything the Army does, you know, there are waivers for everything. I'm sure Steve Wells can tell you that there's a waiver to do anything at any point in time, which means bypass things or find different ways to do things. But with what we do in our branch of the Army and the way we operate, the end goal is to have everything funneled in one way, shape, or form through the IFRICO office for rapid development capabilities. There are, like we said, there's other sources and ways to do things. That is a longer route, but typically if something needs to happen now and then to meet, for example, something called like a GWANS, which is like a rapid requirement. Sometimes the president is the one who executes that. They say, hey, we need something now. No one else would be able to achieve that within the Army other than IFRICO, or what was known as CRM at the time. So we would actually take that challenge and say, let's make it happen and do it as quickly as possible in the time frame that we were told. And that could be, you know, 6 months, or it could be 4 years. Depending on what it is, it's not typically a whole lot of time. And then that gets handed off to one of the Marvel comics that you were just saying now. So that'll get handed off to SHIELD, STARE, whatever it may be. and they will take care of the program from that point forward. So we can focus on what is next.
Gotcha. So, and when I look at this, I see that Jeff Stevens is the program head for IFRICO. And the question here is that what's the blend? You're working for a subcontractor. I know there are huge military subcontractors all over, but in your specific discipline or field, what's the blend of the military to civilian ratio here? And is Mr. Stevens there because a lot of the intellectual technologies coming from outside of the military with brand new cutting edge material?
So I won't be able to answer that last part, unfortunately. But I can say Mr. Stevens has been around for a while. Awesome guy. He's been in actually CRM and IFRICO and kind of worked his way to where he is now. So he has a very good understanding of what we do and what we're trying to achieve. The first part of that, sorry, can you repeat just part of the first part there?
Yeah, the question is, what's the blend of civilian to military? Obviously, you're a cog in the wheel and you're a big subcontractor, but when you interface with everybody in this sort of discipline, what's the ratio of military to civilian folks?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I had some ADHD there. So I actually just saw something today, and I can't give the numbers exactly, but I can tell you that it's almost nowadays like flipping a coin. I could be talking to a contractor or a government person. In most cases, I can tell you that the industry that I work in, whether or not it's supposed to be like this, a lot of the contractors do work that typically isn't made for a contractor to do. Our motto is we don't make decisions, we make suggestions. We don't make the decision for the military or the U.S. Army in my case. We make a suggestion for them. Typically, I do quite a lot of work for test planning and test execution that typically a government person would actually execute. But just due to, a million things, turnover, retention, or just the amount of personnel that they have in a certain location, or the type of work they're doing, the ratings, the way the government works, they shift around all the time. It always ends up being, a lot of contracts specific, contractors specifically actually executing that work. But as of recent, it seems to be, about 50-50, lifting, at least on our side of the house, lifting these bags and putting them down.
Excellent. Well, thank you for everybody here for your participation and asking, all these pertinent questions, kind of helping us to open this up a little more. So class, just to clarify, I know I have folks from 2 different classes in here. To receive credit, you're going to need to submit, your brief discussion post this week. For 501, this is replacing this week's discussion topic, investor choice. Instead, you're going to develop just a brief entry identifying you are here, describing how Justin's organization demonstrates the feasibility of UNSY operations that can help influence future investment, technology, or creation of new service providers. Some of the things we talked about. Maybe take a look at the drone racing element of things and the commercial opportunity that's out there associated with that. The other piece would be counter UAS. Take a quick look out there for that aspect to see, okay, what are the economic enterprises associated with that? Make sure to also discuss any new information you didn't weren't previously familiar with. For 502, it's a little more connected here with MDO. You're gonna you're gonna develop that brief entry identifying how you were in attendance and describing how Justin's ordained benefit consideration of using multi-domain operations. Make sure to also discuss any new information that you were not previously familiar with and how your overall understanding of the topic is improved. So I just want to also say thank you to everybody. I mean, we had a phenomenal turnout this go around. I think, you know, everything you covered, Justin, was really interesting, really intriguing. Kind of, it helped show this is the different processes. This is the steps that one can go from completion of a degree through to different career steps and you know, landing that job that is rewarding, engaging, interesting. You know, and it's just clear from talking to you. You know, I think we've known each other about 11 years now. You couldn't be happier in your current role, and it's very evident. So outstanding.
Oh, thank you. It's yeah, like I said, I just hope that someone can take a piece away from this. Some of the questions that you guys had were really good. Not some, but all of them were very good. And it kind of even opened my eyes up a little bit to some of the things I need to be looking into in the future as well. But thank you for having me. And if you know anyone has any questions, Brent, I'll get with you and maybe we can link the email up and everything, and this way they can contact me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to share. If you want to send me your LinkedIn or anything that you want to share, I can put that out there. I will take your presentation that you sent me. I will convert it to a PDF and drop that in the class probably tomorrow, folks. I'll also try to get the recording of this. We did have some technical hiccups, so hopefully the recording survived. I do see that I've got the flashing recording sign up, so fingers crossed. Hopefully it was, you know, not a problem. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Justin. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you all have a great evening with the rest of your night.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, everyone else.
See y'all.